Bring in Anil joining us as they do each Monday afternoon. Our political strategist Grahame Morris from Barton Deakin and Bruce Hawker, the former federal Labor strategist. Welcome to you both. I want to start with the many polls we've seen out today, 3 of them in total. Have a look at the primary vote across all 3. For News poll, Labor's sitting on 31%, in the Nielsen poll 32%, and in the Essential poll this afternoon slightly higher at 35%. The Coalition 46% in News poll, 44% in Nielsen, and slightly higher in Essential at 48%. So you can get a bit of an idea there of where the average may lie. Similarly, in the two-party preferred vote, let's have a look at that. News poll has the split between Labor and the Coalition at 44 to 56%. The Nielsen poll has the split at 46% to 54%, and Essential right in the middle of those two at 45-55. So roughly at, 8, 10 or 12 point split according to those 3 polls. And then finally, who is seen as the preferred PM? No number from Essential on this one this week, but for News poll and Nielsen, you can see it's a pretty tight contest indeed. 39% to 40% in News poll, 46 each according to Nielsen. Grahame Morris, what do you think these polls, 3 of them out today, tell us about the current state of play and also last week's budget?
Well, I think it shows us that Labor has fired the last shot in the locker and they're still coming second. The budget was the last big set-piece thing. And, from here on in, there is nothing left. All it is a bucket on Tony Abbott on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's it. Look, I suspect had Wayne Swan delivered this budget 3 budgets ago, he might have got a bit of a tick. But it shows you what the political climate and change and people not listening means. I have seen every budget or been involved in, even written some of them, since 1976. And I don't remember one that was so consistently all over the front page, which was Swan's Song, Flogging a Dead Horse, the picture of a magician with no rabbit in the hat. All of the front pages were just really cynical and sceptical. And I think we almost saw it from the poll. So, it mightn't have been a dead cat bounce, but certainly the cat's got leprosy.
Well, the interesting thing is in the Essential poll and a couple of the other polls, when you drill down and ask people whether they're personally better off or worse off, most people don't think they're going to be better off, that's for sure. But on the economy, whether it's better or worse for the economy, most people do give the government a tick. But they're not giving Labor a tick. They're not improving the government standing. Now, Bruce, I guess budgets shouldn't necessarily be about giving the government a boost. They should be about doing what's right by the economy and by the nation's finances. However, there aren't too many shots left in the locker between now and the election for Labor, are there?
This was the major rollout of policy, and as such, it was important, I think, that they said we are going to make Gonski, the education reforms, and the National Disability Insurance Scheme centrepieces of Labor's campaigning. And to do that, we have to demonstrate where the money is going to come from, where the savings are going to be made. And I think they did achieve that. And the Prime Minister actually has got a boost in her support, I think by 4%, and I think Abbott's dropped by about 4% as well. Labor's had a moderate win, but they had to go through that process. And along the way, they got some accolades from the electorate for making some tough calls, including doing away with the baby bonus, which, as we know from the polling, was well received by the electorate, even though a lot of people would have been better off having it in their kick every year. So it was tough decisions, I think, that they had to make around the budget. It wasn't the normal pre-election budget, but I could see where they were coming from on it. They really had to demonstrate that Gonski and the NDIS were realisable promises and not just pie in the sky, which is what the other side have been saying for some time.
Grahame, it may not be there in today's polls, but Tony Abbott's budget reply at least has given Labor a few more openings to argue on, whether it's school funding, whether it's getting rid of the baby bonus as well as the increased family payment that the Labor Party wants to replace it with, whether it's the delay to the superannuation increase as well. At least there's a bit of bite there now for Labor to have something to talk about and something to campaign on.
Well, only if they tell fibs.
No, but each of those are true. He's delaying the superannuation increase by 2 years.
Well, that part is true. But I was there on budget reply night, and I don't remember an opposition getting such a big number of people to come and listen to the reply. And the thing that struck...
Sure, but I'm talking about what he's actually said.
I understand that. But the thing that struck me was that all the small business people that were there were actually excited and cheering. And that was because it looked fair income. You know, Abbott was saying, look, there are some things we cannot afford. This is going to have to go, that's going to have to go. And all of a sudden, people were saying, hang on, Abbott and Hawker have got an economic backbone. And to me, that was one of the key messages out of this budget reply. It was ballsy. You know, anyone could have just skated over it and said, oh, look, it's all right, let's get on with the election. No. You know, he said, look, there are some ideas in here that we quite like, but we can't blink and afford it at the moment. And he got a pat in the back for it.
Bruce, this is true, isn't it? There was a bit of detail in there, and there may be some harder edges to these cuts, but are people going to respect the fact that these cuts need to be made?
Well, they may, and we'll wait and see. Certainly, I think we're seeing some candour on the part of the opposition leader and the shadow treasurer by, flagging quite clearly that GST increases are going to be part and parcel of a new Abbott hockey government.
He's saying they have no plans on GST.
Come on.
I'm referring to what he is doing. Let's just talk about what he is doing, Bruce, for a minute,
I think that's
which
important.
Is the superannuation, the school funding. He's saying, I'll do away with that. And the baby bonus, getting rid of that as well as any family payment increase.
Yeah, well, what we're getting is a new levy to pay for his paid parental leave scheme, a deferment of superannuation benefit increases by a couple of years, probably a GST coming down the line because it's going to be part of their review. They're not ruling that out, and that means one thing, that there's going to be one.
But Bruce, that's the scare campaign, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to have a tax review, you've got to look at everything.
Well, Labor said we're going to have a tax review, and they expressly ruled out having GST as part of the considerations. I think that's legitimate. They could have said we're not going to have GST in our consideration, so it'll never be part of the political agenda. They haven't said that. They've said it's going to be there front and centre, so we have to take that on board. But on top of that, what they're saying is big polluters are going to get off scot-free because they're actually going to be compensated now to the tune of several $1 billion for the scheme that they're going to scrap as a result of them winning if they do in September. And the mining industry isn't going to be paying its tax either. So I think there's a bit there that Labor can campaign on as long as they can focus their message on the sorts of things that an Abbott hockey government would do.
And Bruce, let me ask you this. Clearly, schools is the one thing that the Prime Minister, that Labor want to fight on. They're getting the focus today in the last few days since the budget reply. How does Labor keep this alive, though, as an issue for another 4 months?
Well, I think they have to demonstrate on a state-by-state, district-by-district, electorate-by-electorate, school-by-school basis how our kids are going to be so much better off as a result of having Gonski as part of the funding model. I mean, we know that if Tony Abbott has his way doing away with Gonski, then schools in New South Wales, state schools, will be on average $1.2 million worse off over a 6-year period. Private schools, $800,000. In the Northern Territory, over $4 million for state schools lost as a result of not signing up to Gonski. So that's where I think they take that campaign. They have to do it on a state-by-state, region-by-region, district-by-district, electorate-by-electorate, school-by-school basis and say, this is what you will miss out on if Tony Abbott is elected. I think they've just got to get down into the grassroots and sell that message. Well,
Graham, just finally, it's a long-term reform. I guess the problem for the government here is that over the coming 4 years, as we've just been hearing from Christopher Pyne, it's marginal. Now, whether he's right or Peter Garrett's right, it's not a big increase over the coming 4 years.
No, it's not. That's right. And it does look as if the funding goes down a bit for schools under the Labor Party. But it's, there was one thing on all of this that troubles me and scares the hell out of me. Nobody's listening to the government anymore. But what if, and this is what, this would have been brave, but what if Wayne Swan had stood at budget night, or what if the Prime Minister was to stand tomorrow and say this, I'm sorry, we stuffed up. All of a sudden people would go, what'd she say? What'd she say? And she said, I'm sorry, we've mucked it up. let's start again.
I'm not sure that's going to happen,
It's not
Grahame.
going to happen, but it scares the hell out of me because people would start listening again, and they're not.
Okay, well, I wouldn't hold your breath for it anyway. Grahame Morris, Bruce Hawker, good to talk to you both. We'll catch up next week.